Public Service Commission regulates the investor-owned utilities in Mississippi. Basically, we set the rates for Entergy, Atmos, and Mississippi Power and the other utilities we regulate. In your everyday life, the Public Service Commission touches your life more so than any other space because we're in the electricity and water and utility business. From the area codes that you use on your phone, we approve the area codes for Mississippi. Now, we also regulate the electrical and water industries for the utilities we govern. So as you drinking water, you're flipping on a light, we're touching your life every day at the Public Service Commission in some way. 2014, I identified, and so did many others in the Jackson City Hall, that many of the water issues could be resolved at the Public Service Commission if the city would submit a rate case to help resolve the issues of the Jackson water system. So in 2015, Commissioner Cecil Brown was elected. We had just gotten in office, so we didn't want to run against him. In 2019, we ran and were unsuccessful in that election, but in 2023, with the help of God and good people, we were able to get elected and to be at the table so that when the city of Jackson's utility files a rate case, they will have someone who knows the system intimately well to make sure that Jackson doesn't get messed over in the process. And that was my motivation for running for Public Service Commission, but it's broadened because the same issues in Jackson are the same issues all over Mississippi. Jackson just makes the news all the time, but every community has water issues, sewer issues, electricity issues. And it's taken us 100 years to get where we are, and hopefully in a few short years we can get to a better place. In my life, I've always stepped forward to serve and find ways we can serve better and more effectively. From when I was growing up and volunteering to join the military, volunteering for public service, I was always just a person that had the spirit of David that says, hey, we're going to step forward and try. Even if we may not have it all figured out, again, my formula is always God and good people. And God's always been by my side. I ain't always been with God, but he always been with me, giving me grace and mercy. And we started to figure out things and get better and learn and grow. And then God always put good people around me to help us move forward at every step of my life. And that's how I move through life, God and good people. Well, the one thing that people don't understand about the Mississippi Public Service Commission is, first and foremost, we don't regulate, nor are we in charge of everything. But those things that we are in charge of and have direct control over, we work aggressively hard to ensure that issues are taken care of properly and the situations are resolved in a timely manner. Our district covers a large area across Mississippi with a diverse constituency. It's basically 50-50 Democrat and Republican. It has a mix of every kind of people known to man in Mississippi and 22 counties, and it's about 1 million people. So a typical day for me starts off with, I may be at a meeting in the morning at 8 o'clock in Pearl, and I may end up in Jefferson County in the middle of the day and be up in the Delta that evening. So our days consist of a full range of traveling, but more importantly, we get to see on the ground issues all over the state on a daily basis. We spend a lot of time on the road, but it's good to get out of the office and see people and see folks where they are and see the issues firsthand versus just being a PowerPoint presentation or a report or some memo. You can actually go on the ground and take a look at things for yourself. I know I've done my job when everybody is mad. I know I've done my job at that point because most of the time the utilities want to charge the most money and do the least work. The citizens want to pay the least and get the most. So if I set a rate for a utility and the utility company is jumping for joy, that means that the citizens may not be getting the right number. If I set a rate and the citizens are jumping for joy, that means the system will probably fail like the Jackson water system did. We don't look for high rates or low rates. We look for the correct rate to maintain the system, and we try to balance affordability along the way. But the real issue is prioritization. We must make sure we're charging the correct rate because low rates are dangerous. Low rates means you're not reinvesting in systems upgrading equipment, and being proactive in solving problems inside your utility. You're actually causing danger because fragile systems fail in times of stress. And Mississippi has a range of weather from extremely hot to extremely cold. And water, sewer, electrical, and gas systems must be maintained at a level to handle that stress, or you'll have gas explosions like we experienced in Jackson a couple of weeks after we got elected, failed water systems like we experienced in Jackson, or failed systems that we identified in Winter Storm Fern that knocked out over half the state's utilities, and people were without utilities for an extended period of time. That's what low rates do. Now, when it's 10 degrees in Mississippi, systems fail. When it's 10 degrees in Chicago, they're still door dashing. You know why? Because they made the appropriate investments to make sure that their utilities are stable and reliable, irregardless of if people could afford them or not. So we know that people have affordability issues in Mississippi, and we have to find that balance. But failure is not an option in 2026. People shouldn't be going without water, sewer, or electrical service, or any services in a first world country. For a long time, the posture of the Public Service Commission was pushing against rate increases. We've changed that around, and we're just honest with people. Low rates are not the goal. The correct rate is the goal. Correct rates means that you are upgrading a portion of your system every year. You're making the proper maintenance investments necessary to maintain your systems. That's why we have to change the course of this state and not just have cheap stuff. We have to have reliable stuff. We have to rid ourselves of a welfare mentality because we have several demographics of people who have put their utilities in a situation where people will say, I'm gonna buy what I want, but beg for what I need. We cannot do that in utilities. We must invest in the utilities that we need because we need them to be reliable. So every level of government, from the state, county, federal government, and local level, have to invest in your utilities to shoulder some of the burden so that the residential ratepayer and small business ratepayers are not severely weakened economically because of decisions that are necessary. We can no longer not do what's necessary because we're afraid of raising rates. We must always do what's necessary, and if the people can't afford it, we got to get federal, state, and local government to invest in quality systems. Well, the system falls short when it comes, especially on the electrical side. People always say, why in December, January, February, March does my electric bill go up? Well, generally, that happens because of gas prices. In Mississippi, 76% of the power in this state comes from a natural gas source. So when gas prices rise or wars overseas cause gas prices to rise, that's just a pass-through cost. We probably have not voted for a rate increase, but the cost of producing the power increases because 2/3 of the power in the state comes from natural gas. So when natural gas prices go up, so does your light bill go up. Without a rate filing for us, even though we have to audit the fuel expenditures, but neither the utility companies nor the Public Service Commission control the price of gas. And gas is a major driver of rising costs at every level. Where we have leverage to make changes when utilities do filings, and I say filings because the Public Service Commission is a judicial body, like a courtroom. They file to make investments and to increase rates for those investments to be paid for. So the best thing we can do now is make as many investments right now as we can because the price of work is increasing. The cheapest time to fix something is now. Let me give you an example. The city of Canton has had a struggling water utility for a long time because a myriad of different reasons. So I said, if I'm going to be in this role, I'm going to fix systems. And the Canton utility had tried to get a rate increase back in 2018. And one of those wells that they had in Canton, that well's quote to get it fixed was $700,000 in 2018. That same well today, that same well for the same work is over $3 million. Now, if they'd have fixed it in 2018, they would have saved a lot of money. But they're going to spend upwards a little over $2 million more dollars, about $2.3 million more dollars on that one well, just because they waited and didn't want to raise the rates back in 2018. That's why we must make investments now, because the cheapest time to fix something is now, and you put the time for repair down the road. The investments they're making in that one well and all the rest of the system will last that community for almost 100 years. That's why we must make investments now. It's unpopular to talk about raising rates, but you're really talking about making investments now so our children and grandchildren will not have to make these investments. After World War II, many of the returning veterans came home and said they're going to set America up to win. And they put infrastructure in place after World War II that we've lived off of. That's how we were able to have $10 and $15 water bills for 60 years, because they made investments for us to do so and prepare for us to grow. Now it's time for this generation to make the investments necessary so that our children and grandchildren will not have to make those investments. And that's why we're making investments now. We're making investments now to stabilize our now and prepare for our future. In the rural areas, the number one issue is stable quality electrical service. That is by far the number one issue that people come to me about in the rural areas. You say, well, Commissioner, how you fix that? Let me tell you how you fix it. You invest, and you put things in place to invest. And so that's why we went after large-scale users. We set a goal of creating $100 billion of economic development so that we can get more resources on the table, because I would much rather to have industrial users paying more for electrical service and then take some of that profit and put back into the rural services and the rural reliability and urban reliability, just reliability across the board. Because what it's going to take to stabilize this whole electrical utility across the state is billions and billions of dollars, of which citizens of Mississippi do not have. Plainly put, the citizens of this state do not have the money to reinvest into the systems that deliver them the services they need. So that's why Mississippi is in a position where we're going to grow or we're going to die. So I choose growth, and that means that we must build our city up, grow our population, and set ourselves on a pathway to double the population of this state over the course of the next 30 years. And all the decisions you've seen us make are aimed at giving us effective governance and economies of scale. And with effective governance and economies of scale, we can grow. And those are the decisions we've made. Sometimes they're popular, sometimes they're unpopular, but they are necessary for this state to grow. When I say economies of scale, what that means is we need more resources in this state. Our people are getting poorer and poorer, not because they're not working hard, because inflation and the value of the dollar is going down. Things in goods and services are going up. Their resources are not rising with the pace of the increases in cost of goods and services. So now we need more people, more industry in order for this state to grow. We must grow this state because the citizens of Mississippi do not have the money to maintain this state. And we must be in the business of recruiting bigger business so this state can grow and we can attract more citizens. The more people we have able to pay, the better our services will become. Our life experience puts us in a position where we can connect with the pains across all of Mississippi. I remember my grandmother's house. We didn't get running water until 1982. I was born in 76, so there was a period in my life where I went and it was the norm for everybody from Big Mama to Baby Boy to take a bath in a number 2 tub in the kitchen. What we use is our life experience literally has spanned from the outhouse to the White House and everywhere in between. We have a life experience all across this state and all across this world where we have lived, touched, sat on porches, and put us in a position where we understand. When some folks don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw out, we understand. When you're a single dad or a single mom and you can't pay the bills, but you're trying to keep the lights on, we understand. We understand when you are working hard every day, doing everything you can do, trying to raise your family, maybe trying to start a little side hustle here, a little side hustle there. We understand. That's what sets us apart, is because there are very few elected officials who start off at the local level and come to the state level. Very few. That's why we encourage aldermen, mayors, supervisors, run for higher office. At least try. Because when you get in a position of higher office and you have served at the local level, you are better suited to make decisions. It's not just a PowerPoint for you. It's not just some paperwork. It's personal. That's why we understand. That's why we need more of us. The problem is not that you have a DeKeither stamps. The problem is that you have a DeKeither stamps. You need a whole bunch of DeKeither stamps who served at the local level and at the statewide level. That's the problem, is we don't have enough local leaders rising up. Challenge yourself, grow. Don't just get comfortable. Fight, push yourself, at least try. You may not win elections. I done lost them too. Y'all done seen me lose these elections and you done seen me win them, but we always try. That's what my mama told me. She said, you might not have it all together. You may not think you're worthy. You might not think you're ready. Do it anyway. If you're scared, do it anyway. If you feel like that's not for you, at least try. Because your voice is needed at the statewide level. The decisions that are being made with these utilities are going to directly impact the future of this state. The agriculture industry in this state is going through a challenging spot. It has been the bedrock. It has been the anchor of this state for a long time. And we, the average Mississippian, have shifted away from agriculture. I find it quite strange that if you're an agriculture state and the majority of Mississippians are not connected to your major industry, that's going to cause a problem. And it has caused the problems that we identify today as real problems, because we got too many people disconnected from the major industry of our state, and that industry is waning. The emerging industry is the utility industry. It's growing. It's becoming more profitable, and it's becoming a source of resources and economy to move the state forward. And the decisions that are being made in the utility space, the things that are coming across our desk, are no longer $1 million decisions. They're no longer $1 billion decisions. They are $100 billion decisions, and will be $1 trillion decisions over the course of the next few years. Stay tuned. We got a lot of big things on our plate, and we're going to keep working hard. I love you. Daggone thing you can do about it. God bless. Godspeed.